Hi, I'm Hal Roberts. This is Bridge City News. Here's some of the top stories we've been following. Premier Daniel Smith says the province is launching a campaign to combat Ottawa's proposed electricity regulations, which she says would severely hurt Alberta families and businesses. The federal director of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation has spoken out against a massive taxpayer investment in Quebec. And even though abortion is legal in Canada, a group of pro-lifers are planning a huge rally in Lethbridge this weekend.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Hal Roberts.
Thanks so much for joining us. The Alberta government is not happy with the federal government's proposed electricity regulations. Premier Daniel Smith says Ottawa's proposals will make electricity even more expensive than it is now and hurt grid reliability for both families and business owners. Officials say Alberta will be forced to achieve net zero in 12 years without stable sources of baseload power, including natural gas. Smith says Ottawa is simply overstepping the limits of the law.
The federal electricity regulations will create a system that is massively unaffordable, dangerously unreliable, and utterly unconstitutional. Canadians need to know the facts about what's at stake here, and we're ensuring that they will. Alberta's government has launched a public awareness campaign across the country to inform Canadians of Ottawa's reckless and costly plan. We are running print, radio, television, and social media ads, along with billboards and bus wraps. These highlight how the regulations will make it more expensive for Canadians by increasing power bills. It'll drive off investment in jobs, and it will threaten the reliability of our power grid and put it at risk. And as we all begin to feel the temperatures dip and the wind grow cooler, having just come off a summer with heat waves, we are reminded that we live in a country of extremes. Our campaign urges everyone to contact their MPs and have their say so that Ottawa can hear how many people are deeply concerned.
Premier Smith says the province has its own path forward. She says Alberta reduced electricity emissions by 53% between 2005 and 2021 and will be fully transitioned from coal-powered electricity by next year. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and Quebec Premier François Legault talked about what is being billed as the largest private investment in the province's history. Swedish manufacturer Northvolt says it will build a $7 billion factory for electric vehicle batteries at a 170-hectare site near Montreal. A spokesperson with Northvolt explains why they are leaning on Canada for their battery production.
The batteries that we get supplied from Asia comes with roughly 100 kg of CO2 per kilowatt hour. And if we continue expanding, transforming our transportation, our energy industry, etc., with that type of supply chain, we're actually creating a new carbon footprint the size of half Germany's. And that is kind of defying the purpose of why we're doing this.
The facility is being developed with both federal and provincial tax dollars. It's expected to go into production in 2026 and will employ up to 3,000 workers. Now, officials with the Canadian Taxpayers Federation were not happy with the Quebec announcement. The group's federal director, Franco Terrazzano, says governments should cut out the corporate welfare. The Quebec government is giving Northvolt up to $2.9 billion, while Ottawa is pitching in with $1.34 billion in subsidies. Terrazzano says while taxpayers are struggling with high inflation and affordability, the company that received the corporate handout confirmed it's likely unnecessary.
Yeah, that's correct. So, what is the government doing here, right? This is what the Trudeau government is doing, raising taxes on ordinary Canadians and then giving big buckets of cash to multinational corporations, right? Because this isn't the first time that we've seen a massively expensive corporate welfare deal from the Trudeau government. Recently, we've also seen taxpayers be put on the hook for about $30 billion in corporate handouts to Volkswagen and Stellantis. So it seems like every month, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau finds a new multinational corporation to give our money to. Well, here's a simple question. Mr. Trudeau, how many billions of dollars are you going to put taxpayers on the hook for to fund your corporate welfare obsession?
Terrazzano adds that the Parliamentary Budget Officer released a report showing government handouts to other battery manufacturers won't break even for decades. A man suspected of making threats against Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and Quebec Premier François Legault is in stable condition after being shot by a provincial police tactical team officer. Quebec's police watchdog is investigating the incident. The shooting took place Wednesday morning as police were trying to arrest a man at a home in Scottstown, which is located around 180 kilometers east of Montreal. The agency says the officer fired after he looked through a window and saw a man point a gun toward the door where other officers were entering the home. Liberal MP Greg Fergus says he will be running for the position of House of Commons Speaker, adding he will encourage frank and passionate free debate. Conservative MP Chris D'Entremont, who is currently a Deputy Speaker, is also running and says he would endeavour to be of service to all MPs.
We're working as much as we can with all parties, but mostly the opposition parties, to see if there's an opportunity that we can get the speakership. It's something that has only happened a very few times, but I think the indication is right now that we're working in the right direction. Well, I think there has to be some more decorum in the House, some more respect for one another. I think we have to completely look at how the individual made it into the gallery and how it was missed, so that it doesn't happen again. But ultimately, you have to have a personal relationship with all of the members of the House of Commons, have an understanding of what their needs and wants are, because the speaker is serving the members. It's not the members serving the speaker by any stretch.
Canada has seen its largest population increase since 1957. The newly released information from Stats Canada shows our country's population grew by more than 1 million people from July of 2022 to July of this year. It was mainly due to immigration. The agency says Canada also saw a massive 46% increase in the number of temporary residents over the same time frame. The increase was mostly due to people with work visas rather than international students. In terms of overall numbers, the population growth seen over the last year was more than double what we saw in 1957 when there was a baby boom along with a Hungarian refugee crisis. Well, we saw lots of sunshine and seasonal temperatures once again here in Lethbridge. Jeanette Rocher is now with a quick peek at the forecast. Jeanette, there's a chance of rain clouds rolling into our region, however, sometime this weekend?
Yeah, Saturday, actually, we should see some periods of rain and much cooler temperatures then as well. But this evening, Thursday night, we are looking at a few clouds, overnight low of 4 degrees. And that same westerly wind that we had earlier today, we're looking at 40, gusting to 60 kilometers per hour. And to tomorrow, Friday, mainly sunny skies, high of 16, and a westerly wind from 20 to 40 kilometers per hour. And then after that, that's when we should get into the rain and the clouds for the rest of the weekend. But I'll be back later in the show to give you the full weather forecast.
Thanks so much, Jeanette. Many people often wonder what the difference is between donating blood versus donating plasma. Well, a special education session was held at Sackman Lethbridge on Thursday to talk about the subject. BCN's Micah Quinn chatted with a spokesperson from the Lethbridge Plasma Donor Centre about the importance of donating.
Canadian Blood Services throughout COVID lost about 31,000 donors across Canada. So because of that, we're trying here in Lethbridge to bring in at least 200 new plasma donors each month.
It's often a topic of confusion when it comes to telling the difference between donating blood and plasma. Brenna Scott works as the Business Development Manager for the Lethbridge Plasma Donor Centre, and she helped clear the air for us.
If you've donated whole blood in the past, you have donated plasma, as plasma is 55% of your blood volume. The difference is, although it's still the one needle in your arm, when we collect the plasma, we use a machine beside you. It's called a centrifuge, which spins the plasma out of the whole blood. We keep the plasma, and then we give the rest of your cells, your red cells, your platelets, all back to you. And we do that back and forth process, kind of like dialysis, until we get a full donation. How much you're able to donate is based on your height and weight, and you are eligible to donate plasma every 7 days, which is a big difference from donating whole blood, for men every 56 days and women every 84 days.
According to Canadian Blood Services, there is currently a global need for more plasma donations.
Our plasma that we collect, it's sent to our fractionator and made into medications called plasma protein products. And the most common medication is called immune globulin. And it's used for a wide variety of health conditions: cancer, liver disease, kidney disease, immunodeficiencies, RH disease in newborns, severe burns, and that's just to name a few.
Scott told us over 13,000 units of plasma were collected at the Lethbridge Centre in 2022. For Bridge City News, I'm Micah Quinn.
A special ribbon mural has gone up at Our Lady of the Assumption School here in Lethbridge. Officials with the school say it's their way of recognizing Truth and Reconciliation Week. It was Kristen Shade's idea to make the mural. She's the First Nations facilitator with the Holy Spirit Catholic School Division. She says it's important for students to have a better understanding of what happened during the residential school system.
This is one of a very, a sensitive topic, I want to say. And I want to always create awareness and let my kids know, my students know that it is always good to educate themselves, even though that they may not know about residential schools, but they are in the future through junior high, through high school. They're going to know more and more about this.
The National Day for Truth and Reconciliation is coming up on Saturday. Alberta has been seeing a lot more film and television production lately. Are we becoming more of a Hollywood North than Toronto or Vancouver? Brock Skredding is with the advocacy group Keep Alberta Rolling. He says what's helping to make our province more attractive to producers are incentives the Alberta government is offering.
Yeah, I think the provincial government is doing it. You know, the film and television tax credit has been a game changer. They've been supportive in working with the municipalities. I think some of our secondary municipalities like Lethbridge, like maybe Red Deer, Medicine Hat, can start thinking about regional development so that it's province-wide and not just Calgary and Edmonton centric.
We're going to chat all things TV and film with Brock Skredding from Keep Alberta Rolling. We'll also chat with U of L professor Derek Olson and award-winning director Scott Sikma coming up in the second half of our program. The issue of abortion is still a controversial subject, not just in our country, but around the world. When does life begin, and what protections should the unborn be entitled to? Now, there's a large pro-life event taking place this weekend in Lethbridge, along with other cities across the country, called the Life Chain. Nick Odeshorn is a board member of Lethbridge and District Pro-Life, and he joins us now from Lethbridge with more of the details. Nick, what is the Life Chain event really all about?
Life Chain is actually just an opportunity to demonstrate at large with Canadians all across the country. We're basically just gathering as an annual day of public witness for children that have been killed by abortion. And it's just an opportunity to stand up and peacefully and prayerfully bear witness about the truth of abortion and what's happening as children are being killed en masse, approximately 300 every day in our country.
So where and when is the Life Chain event taking place?
It's happening October 1st from 2 to 3 p.m. along Henderson Drive. We're going to meet by Japanese Gardens. It's down on the east side of Mayor McGrath, and then we just stand there and hold signs and pray that abortion would be ended and that people would come to recognize that there is value inherent to life and that vulnerable children should be protected from conception till natural death.
Now, Nick, abortion is legal here in Canada, so what are you really hoping to accomplish with this Life Chain event this weekend?
Really, this is just an opportunity for us to stand up and educate others. It's not even so much intended to educate deeply, but more so raise awareness. Now, this is only one opportunity that we have all year among many pro-life opportunities to do this sort of thing, but it's a great chance to do it very visibly with hundreds of other people in Lethbridge here.
And if people want more information on the event, where should they go?
I believe they can go to lifechain.org. The Lethbridge Pro-Life website also has a link to get to it and see the details, and that's just an easy way to find it online.
Thanks so much for your time today, Nick. That was Nick Odeshorn, board member of Lethbridge and District Pro-Life. Lethbridge police have issued a warning about a suspicious man who has been reportedly taking pictures of children. Police say the male in his 20s with dark skin, possibly East Asian descent, was seen taking pictures of children at a playground last Sunday along Lakemount Boulevard South. Then on Wednesday, the same man was seen shooting pictures of kids at a school playground along Mildred Dobbs Boulevard North. Police say while it's not a criminal offense to take photos in a public setting, the man's conduct in both instances is deemed suspicious and his intentions are unknown. Police say if you view any suspicious activity in your neighborhood, to call them right away at 403-328-4444. Limiting screen time when kids are online is vital to a child's health. Now that's according to Dr. Robin Bright, who is the interim dean of faculty for education at the University of Lethbridge. Dr. Bright says it's very important for parents to monitor their kids' online behavior, especially when they're really young.
Children under the age of 2, most experts are saying should not have any screen time or very, very little, because it interferes with the development of language. It makes them a little bit less interested in the world around them. And then from that age up, it's just really important to monitor the time that kids spend online, and also to be part of it with kids, so that it's not something that they do all on their own. There's time for education, thinking about what it is that you're doing.
Dr. Bright will also discuss why it's still important for our kids to learn how to curl up with a good book. Watch the full interview coming up in the second half of our program. The BC government is bringing back a mask mandate for all healthcare facilities. The province says it's in preparation for the viral respiratory illnesses expected this fall and winter. The new measures will go into effect on October the 3rd. The province's provincial health officer, Dr. Bonnie Henry, has the details.
Continuing medical masking by healthcare workers, visitors, contractors, volunteers in patient care areas. So really focusing on those areas where people are at risk. And that includes all health authority, hospital, clinical settings, all long-term care homes, seniors assisted living settings, private hospitals, and private mental health facilities. We are trying to find a balance, particularly in long-term care, of finding safe times for visitors to long-term care to have that important face-to-face contact with their loved one in a safe way.
Dr. Henry adds that medical masks will also be required in common areas of long-term care homes and assisted living facilities. A man convicted in the hit-and-run death of a Calgary police officer 3 years ago was sentenced to 12 years in prison. The driver was just days away from turning 18 at the time and was charged as a youth with first-degree murder. Sergeant Andrew Harnett died after he was dragged by an SUV and fell into the path of an oncoming car on New Year's Eve. The judge gave 4 years credit for the time the driver's already spent in custody. A GoFundMe page has been set up for the Assistant General Manager of the Calgary Flames, Chris Snow. His wife, Kelsey, posted a tweet on Thursday morning saying tests that were done on Snow on Wednesday morning confirming that he will not wake up. Her tweet goes on to say that Chris offered his body to a clinical trial to help others. In death, he will do the same. He remains on life support while organ donation is being arranged. We are so proud of him. Snow suffered a brain injury after going into cardiac arrest on Wednesday. He had been diagnosed with ALS back in June of 2019, and at that time, doctors gave him up to a year to live. So far, over $50,000 has been raised through their GoFundMe page in support of the family. Prayers going out to the Snow family right now. Well, it was another beautiful fall day here in southwestern Alberta, temperatures in the mid-teens, and that trend should continue for the short term. A full look at the weather forecast is coming up. It was another beautiful day for taking your pooch for a walk at either Henderson Lake or maybe another local park. And you know, the Nikiyuko Japanese Garden would also be quite spectacular with all of the leaves changing color as well right now. Jeanette Rocher is in now with all of the weather details. Jeanette, we better get out and enjoy the fall colors before the leaves simply blow away here in Lethbridge.
Yeah, that's for sure. And between today, tonight, and tomorrow, let's hope that doesn't happen, because it's been a bit windy out there, and it will continue to be that way. Into this evening, we are looking at those winds from 40 to 60K from the west. That's overnight this evening into Friday, 20 to 40K winds, high of 16 degrees, though, and mainly sunny skies. And then after that, and we are getting into some rain there. So periods of rain throughout the day on Saturday, high of only 11 degrees. So there's that cooling trend right there. Up to 14 on Sunday with mainly cloudy skies. Sunshine on Monday, though, high of 20 degrees. And then 19 for Tuesday and a high of 16 on Wednesday. So the average high for this time of year is 18, average low 3 degrees, 30 degrees. That was our high temperature. That happened back in 1967. And in 1965, it was a chilly -6. 7:26, that's when the sun rose today. And this evening, we're looking at a sunset at 7:17 p.m., giving us 11 hours and 51 minutes of daylight. So we're just under that 12-hour mark. Okay, Victoria tomorrow looking at a high of 16 degrees, clearing in the morning as well in Vancouver, high of 15 there. 12 degrees for a temperature in Edmonton tomorrow with showers, and looking at fog dissipating in the morning at 12 for a high in Calgary there. And we're looking at patches of clouds, but it's going to be mainly sunny for the rest of the day. As we get into the rest of the prairies, what's going on here? We're seeing 18 degrees in Saskatchewan, Saskatoon, looking at showers in the morning and clearing in the afternoon there in Regina. 21 for a high in Winnipeg, and we're going to see a mix of scattered clouds there. As we get into the central part of the country, let's look at Toronto, high of 22 degrees, but we're seeing some shower activity there with some fog dissipating in the morning. 22 for a high in Ottawa as well. And same thing for Montreal, in both of those areas, looking at scattered clouds as well. Now we're seeing quite a bit of fog, particularly in the morning, all throughout Atlantic Canada. Seeing that in Fredericton, Halifax, and Charlottetown, but sunshine for most of the rest of the day. High of 23 in Fredericton, 22 for a high in Halifax, 21 in Charlottetown, and in 16 degrees in St. John's. And what is happening there is they've got a little bit more gusty wind, 20 to 40 k, and also a frost advisory in effect overnight. Could see some frost patches in the morning, but then clearing away. So there you have it. That is your forecast.
The number of job vacancies fell 5.8% in July on a month-to-month basis. It also dropped 28.1% on a year-over-year basis. Stats Canada says job vacancies are now at their lowest level since May of 2021. The agency says the number of job vacancies fell by 43,100 to 701,300 in the month. It has been a steady downward trend since June of last year. There were 1.7 unemployed people for every job vacancy in July. That is up from 1.5 in June. A new report says Canada's economic struggles will ease next year as the Bank of Canada begins cutting its key lending rate. The study by Deloitte Canada estimates GDP will increase 1% this year and 0.9% the next. It predicts the central bank will begin lowering interest rates next spring, eventually bringing the key rate to about 3% by mid-2025. Deloitte expects a population surge and an improved outlook for trade with the United States likely prevented the country from going into a deeper recession. Netflix's once iconic DVD by mail service is taking its final bow. Its 5 remaining distribution centers will mail out their final discs tomorrow to the fewer than 1 million remaining subscribers. It comes 25 years after the birth of a concept that destroyed Blockbuster video stores. The service also provided a springboard into the video streaming world, which transformed the way we view entertainment today. Now, here's a look at today's markets. The TSX was up 154 points on the day to finish at 19,590. The Dow was up 116 points to 33,666. The S&P 500 was up 25 on the day to 42.99, and the Nasdaq was up 108 points to 13,201. West Texas Intermediate Oil was down $1.86 to 91.82 U.S. per barrel. Natural gas was up 5 cents to 2.95 U.S. Gold was down 7 cents on the day to 18.64.80 U.S. an ounce, and silver was up 8 cents to 2.62 U.S. an ounce. Feed wheat is at $9.53 per bushel, barley's at $7.29, canola's at $16.31, and corn is at $8.89 per bushel. Live cattle October contract was up $1.60 to $186.50. Feeder cattle were up 80 cents to $252.33. And lean hogs October contract was up $1.83 to $83.95. The Canadian dollar was down slightly over the past 24 hours to 74.14 U.S. Recapping one of our top stories, Canada has seen its largest population increase since 1957. The newly released information from Stats Canada shows our country's population grew by more than 1 million people from July of 2022 to July of this year. It was mainly due to immigration. Officials say it was more than double the increase in 1957 when our country experienced a baby boom and a Hungarian refugee crisis. Well, it appears as though Alberta is becoming somewhat of a Hollywood North with the amount of films and TV series being shot here. Coming up, we'll chat with an award-winning director and the folks from Keep Alberta Rolling about why so many productions are being shot in our beautiful province. Listen, when you see news happening in your community, be sure to drop us an email at info@bridgecitynews.ca. And if you missed any of today's local stories, be sure to visit our website, bridgecitynews.ca. The film industry here in Alberta keeps building a following, but that's not without the hard work of those within our province who continue to advocate for more TV and film productions. And why not? Alberta has incredible backdrops with our beautiful Rocky Mountains, the foothills, along with our spectacular towns and cities. You don't have to look much further than southwestern Alberta and the town of Fort Macleod, which has had a number of productions shot there, including Ghostbusters. Now, to talk about more about what Alberta has to offer is University of Lethbridge professor Derek Olson, Brock Skredding of Keep Alberta Rolling, and award-winning director Scott Sikma. Gentlemen, welcome to Bridge City News.
Thank you.
Derek, let's begin with you. TV and films are so popular that more and more people are signing up for your cinematography course at the University of Lethbridge. How did this course come to be?
Well, I mean, I've been at the University of Lethbridge since around 2000 and 2007. I'm actually an alum of the University of Lethbridge as well. So I finished my degree about 20 years ago. And when I was a student here, there wasn't a film program. There was a multimedia program, was brand new, and they did a little bit of video work, and that's sort of where I started. When I went away to finish my master's degree, I always had it in my mind to be able to come back and sort of grow some of the curriculum offerings here at the University of Lethbridge and teach students more about how to make films.
So when your students enroll in the program, is it all about the storytelling or more about maybe the production side of things, such as learning the low angle and depth of field shots?
Well, I mean, there's lots of different courses that I teach, and there's lots of other faculty at the university that also contribute to a really broad-based kind of approach to the film industry and to the media industry more broadly. But really, it touches more of what I teach is on the storytelling side of things and not really into a lot of the technical stuff. But it is a really good balance between the creative side of things and preparing people with the skills-based training.
Yeah, you need a good storyline, absolutely, to sell a film or a TV series. Brock Skredding is one of your former students and is succeeding in the industry. Brock, what is your biggest takeaway from the program at the U of L?
Yeah, I think it just it lays the foundation for success in a number of ways. I think you see the convergence of different types of narrative filmmaking and video game production, AR, VR, all types of different things. All of those are based on story and based on a wide range of technical skills. So it gives you a little bit of taste of everything, and then you kind of get to pick which direction you want to start to specialize in afterward. So it really sets you up with that foundation so that you can go into your career on good footing and then make decisions onto which area most interests or most fits your skills.
So Brock, one of the more important parts of post-secondary education is that true and meaningful connection the student can make. Can you talk about the opportunity to collaborate on projects and how it led to your success in building your career in the film and TV industry?
Yeah, I think I'll say Derek's he's on the line, so I'll just tell a bit about a narrative production class that we took back in U of L. We would make these short films, and I just remember it takes a lot of effort and a lot of time to put these productions together, even at a student level. So he was an extremely patient and helpful and knowledgeable professor that he really, it didn't matter what time of day or what the actual schedule of the classes were, he would help out not just myself but all the students. So I've always been grateful for that, and I take that experience with me into the industry as I work, for sure.
That's great. Now, Scott, you're an award-winning director. Can you chit-chat a bit about the mentorship that you received that led to where you are now?
So it actually it came at a last-minute thing, and it was great. Derek was directing a feature film while I was in school there. It worked out. He was looking for more people and gave me the opportunity to come in and AD with him and get to see the building blocks of how film and everything works together in a student film, and well, more than a student film, in a feature film, and gave me the building blocks that I carry along through the career. And it was great to learn it there, because it was, especially with Derek, it was like, no, this is, learn your mistakes here, learn how to get through it, learn your problems here, so that when you go out in the industry, you have the fundamentals, you have the knowledge to do this. And that's what Derek brought to the table for us.
So Scott, what are some of the other bigger productions you've been involved with?
I've been all over, from following Christopher Nolan with Interstellar. I just finished first ADing for director Walter Hill doing Dead for a Dollar. I'm signed to do his next feature film as well. I can't say anything about it yet, but I'm signed for that one. And it's great. I've been working with A-list actors all over the world. I went down all over the States and Europe and Canada, and it's just go, go, go. And I'm very much a motto of I just keep kicking doors as I go, and people say no to me, and I'll swamp their office with resumes, every single desk. I don't care. I love this industry, and it's got me where I am, and it's up from here. It's, again, I'm signed for directing another Christmas movie, directing another summer romance, and Hallmark's been really great for those things, and it's been bringing me all over. I love everything from the A-list movies down to the C-list and D-list, or whatever it is. It's about the story, and it's about the passion behind it, and that's what I love.
Quite the adventures here. Now, can you talk about what you needed to learn as a student to really connect with the viewer through storytelling?
It was learning those fundamentals, and that's especially with Derek's narrative classes and script buildings. It was learning your start, your middle, your finish, learning your big whale, how the story all comes together, and it's teaching us how to allow our actors to be actors. At the end of the day, I'm a director, but I'm just there to push and pull them in the right direction. It's up to them to bring it, and that was a huge thing that Derek showed us, is let them do their jobs, let them be who they are, and that's how you're going to succeed.
Now, Derek, you have your own accolades in the film industry, and it's not an easy industry to be in. Now, can you talk about how you've seen students supported and encouraged to pursue their career and passion in film?
I think you're right. Yeah, it is a very challenging industry to be in. There's a lot of ups and downs, a lot of starts and stops in the industry, and I think that's one of the benefits of having a post-secondary environment to learn in, because it allows you to create those connections with your fellow students and with your professors, and when you bring people in from the industry to visit with the students, and it's that network that helps to provide opportunities and to point people in the next direction. We're doing a show over here, to be able to connect with people, and I mean, one of the things that I tell my students a lot, especially early on, is that a reputation is difficult to build and difficult to earn. It's incredibly easy to lose. And so it's those relationships that I really strive for those students to build and to maintain, and to support them. I'm in touch with a lot of my former students, and continue to encourage them and watch them succeed, and that's really fun. And get an opportunity like this to even just visit with them again and see all the success that they've been having.
You can be like a proud papa, you know, that's my girl, that's my boy right there, you know. Derek, as a professor in film studies, how do you feel students can be kept from really falling through the cracks and maybe losing motivation?
I mean, that's challenging too, right? Because a lot of people, especially when they get started in this, don't understand the kind of effort it takes. And Scott was just talking about that, right? About how, you know, it's a lot of hustle, right? It's a lot of being proactive and being really assertive in charting your own direction. And so, I mean, it's trying to set realistic expectations for students, especially when they first get into my classes, and then also, you know, bringing people like Scott and Brock and others into the student kind of environment to be able to help reinforce those expectations and really help those students know what it's going to take to be successful.
Scott, let's flesh this out a little bit more here. What would you say were some of the main factors of your education that really helped to contribute to your success?
I think the main factors were, it's the fundamentals that Derek and the teachers there all taught us, but it's also the connections I made there. A lot of the students I went to school with, me and Brock were in the same classes, and it's great back and forth when I've done a few things with Keep Alberta Rolling, and to see what they bring forward to the table, as well as other students. One of my producers now is Carly James, and me and her started at the exact same time, right next to each other on the computer, and we followed each other throughout the past 10 years, working Vancouver, in the States, working Canada, and it's not just them, it's so many students that I'm constantly reaching out to, and I'll meet up with them on set, and it's like, oh, okay, you have connections here, I have connections here. How can we help each other move forward? And Derek is really right. It's a huge thing about building your reputation, building yourself up, and it's that connection of the other students that you learn and you meet, and that's what really brings it together as a community and helps us evolve there. And it is that. It's the students that you meet and the fundamentals that Derek teaches to bring us to where we are.
Now, Brock, you were the head of the advocacy group Keep Alberta Rolling. Can you talk a bit about what your organization really does?
Yeah, I think we quite a few things. We really just like the name suggests, try to advocate for the growth of the screen industry specifically in the province of Alberta. Work with municipalities to try to get them to implement film-friendly policy, development, things like implementing commissions or funds, things of that nature, and just try to raise awareness about all the successes that we've seen in this industry. So we've seen over, like you mentioned, Ghostbusters and a couple other projects, but just last night or yesterday, Alberta Made in Alberta projects were nominated for 30 Emmys. So
Wow.
So 24 for The Last of Us and 6 for Prey. So it just shows the accolades that the hard work and skill and talent of Albertans are putting on the table at a global scale, and also just the quality of the locations here, which is partnerships between municipalities, the provincial government, the organizations in the film industry, and so many other private businesses and landowners. So it's trying to promote those people and encourage more of that to happen. And certainly over the last number of years, Alberta has become a major player. So it's really exciting to see.
That's cool, because a lot of times we hear about Vancouver being Hollywood North, Toronto being Hollywood North all the time. What can we do to really entice more producers to bring their films here to Alberta?
Yeah, I think the provincial government is doing it. The film and television tax credit has been a game changer. They've been supportive in working with the municipalities. I think some of our secondary municipalities, like Lethbridge, like maybe Red Deer, Medicine Hat, can start thinking about regional development so that it's province-wide and not just Calgary and Edmonton-centric. But the film industry loves to utilize all the locations of Alberta. So I think we just have to keep on the track of that we're on now, which is collaboration and training and the whole province working together to try to make this industry succeed. And I think it's working. So we just more of the same, in my opinion.
Around 7 years ago, I had the opportunity to work with legendary film director Denis Villeneuve on the film Arrival. I had the principal role as one of the main TV anchors in the feature film that was shot in Old Montreal. What an incredible experience. I can check it off my bucket list here. Now, Mr. Villeneuve wanted to actually hire journalists to be in his movie. He was very humble and approachable. So, Scott, as a director, let me ask you something. How important is it for you to never forget your roots and remember where you came from?
You have, it is one of the most important things. You have to remember that, otherwise this industry will eat you up and spit you right back out. You have to be humble. You have to be constantly be thankful. And a lot of the opportunities I have, I am very thankful for having. It's 1 in a million chance to work with some of these people, and especially with Walter Hill, and a huge fan of his growing up, and now I work next to him. And same with even Kevin Sorbo. I've done 2 movies now with him, and growing up watching him as Hercules. And you gotta stay your grounds and stick your ways, otherwise you're not going to last through it. The film industry is never a job, it is a lifestyle.
And busy too. I remember Denis Villeneuve said to me after I was done shooting my scene, listen, Hal, I got to split. I got to go to Istanbul, Turkey to shoot the new Blade Runner movie with Ryan Gosling and Harrison Ford. I'm like, what? And he left that same day. It was just incredible. Derek, as you watch the careers of both Scott and Brock develop and advance, what do you feel really needs to be said to future Alberta filmmakers?
I think one of the things that I would say, and Brock and Scott are a great example of this, is that it's a possibility, right? I think that's the thing, especially growing up in Southern Alberta myself, not really realizing that the film industry was accessible. It was something that was a possibility, right? And that's one of the great things that post-secondary education can do. It opens up doors, it opens up possibilities, and I think that that's what I would say. It would be like, if this is something that's really of interest to you, there's so many different ways to get involved in this industry. Being able to have a well-rounded foundation and a post-secondary advanced education kind of environment is great, but there's lots of other ways to get involved in the industry. And again, Brock talks a lot about those in his advocacy, and there's lots of different ways to be involved and to really learn that this is it's a valuable part of our society. It's an incredible part of our economy. And this is a really bright time in the film industry right now in our province.
Derek Olson is a professor at the University of Lethbridge. Brock Skretting is with Keep Alberta Rolling, and Scott Sikma is an award-winning director. Gentlemen, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having us.
You know, despite all of the emojis and grammar police on social media these days, we all know the importance of reading and writing here in our world. Education is a building block to our society. And naturally, as society changes, attitudes and techniques for life and education change over time as well. Now, to chat about this in more detail, especially about reading, writing, but not arithmetic, and the changes to education over the years, is the interim dean of the Faculty of Education at the University of Lethbridge, Dr. Robin Bright. Dr. Bright, welcome to Bridge City News.
Thank you very much. It's nice to be here.
Now, you had a pretty distinguished career in education, and I'm sure that during your time as an educator, much has changed over the years. Is there something you feel has been the biggest change in education? What has really jumped out for you?
Well, I think in terms of my area, which is reading instruction, I think there's been a change in emphasis over the years. So, for instance, when I first started teaching, we talked a lot about the reading wars, and there being a debate about how best to teach reading. And over the last several decades, I think we've received, I think, more clarity in terms of what really matters in teaching reading. And so I think we're in a different place for educators and for parents to really know what matters when it comes to teaching reading. So I would say that's probably one of the biggest changes or things that have evolved over the last 20 to 30 years.
You know, I remember when I was a kid, my friends would say, I want to kick back with a good book. Do you still hear young people saying that today?
Well, I would say you hear it sometimes. It's probably not necessarily an activity that many kids gravitate to first. However, a lot depends on, how they've been, how reading has been talked about in their homes, how effective teachers and librarians have been in encouraging them to read. So in schools, I think teachers are doing a really good job at helping students find books that really matter to them so that they can do just, as you say, kick back and enjoy a good book. But there are a lot of things competing with kids' time right now. So it does make it a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, especially social media, whether it's Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or TikTok. I mean, it just goes on and on and on, which takes up a lot of children's time. Now, what would you say are the challenges for students and for educators in this year that were maybe not in consideration 20 years ago, outside of social media?
Well, I mean, you've raised the most important one, and that is that there's so much time for screens. And unfortunately, if it's not monitored, then that can be a really negative influence in children's lives. There's a fabulous site called Media Smarts, which I, go to a lot in order to look at new research that's available. And they give you some really great ideas about how to monitor screen time. For instance, children under the age of 2, most experts are saying should not have any screen time or very, very little because it interferes with the development of language. It makes them a little bit less interested in the world around them. And then from that age up, it's just really important to monitor the time that kids spend online and also to be part of it with kids so that it's not something that they do all on their own. There's time for education, thinking about what it is that you're doing. But screen time would be the big change, I think, in children's lives over the last several decades.
You know, and as a parent, you know, myself, I have two kids, they're in their 20s now, but I remember when my daughter was 10 or 11 years old and she wanted to start up a Facebook account. And I'm really concerned, like a lot of other parents, about predators who are out there going after our children, posing as someone else. You know, so you have to really be careful about where your kids are going online and at what age at the same time. So how do you see teachers and educators evolving, Dr. Bright, evolving with their techniques to counteract the changes that we see in society today?
Well, if we are talking specifically about young children, and especially coming out of a pandemic, one of the things I think that teachers are really focused on is how to set the foundations for early reading. And, you know, some children miss those opportunities by not being in school over the last, you know, on a regular basis over the last several years. So one of the ways that teachers of young children are helping to combat this is by making sure that they're focused on, I think, two really important aspects when it comes to teaching reading. Oral language, so helping children to, you know, have those conversations, sing, use chants, rhyming, lots of Mother Goose, because they've missed out on those kinds of opportunities to really develop a strong oral language base upon which, you know, learning to read is based. So they're moving children from this, you know, really environment that focuses on oral language into, you know, written language. And in written language, of course, they're focused on how language works. So really helping kids understand that sound symbol relationship, getting them to understand that it's important to sound outwards. And using writing too. Watching children write naturally helps teachers figure out how they're making sense of language when they're learning to read. So I think that's what I'm seeing teachers, especially in the early grades, kindergarten through grade 3, focus on with their students.
You know, it's interesting now, I'll sit down with a pen to paper, try my cursive writing, because I'm on a keyboard all day. I've kind of lost the knack here. It's like, ooh, that does not look good at all. That looks kind of, I need to practice this a little bit more, you know? Because like they say, if you don't use it, you lose it, I guess. Now, we've heard a lot about changes to the curriculum here in our province in Alberta. Can you speak to the new curriculum in kindergarten through grade 3? Do you think it will benefit kids and improve learning outcomes?
Yeah, so the new curriculum has come in, and I think teachers have had an opportunity over the last little while. Certainly, we have in teacher education to really examine what's in there. And what I'll say is the focus on beginning reading is not bad. As a matter of fact, I think it's helped teachers recognize how important the foundational skills in learning to read are. But I would say there are things that are still missing from that curriculum, and that teachers want to be aware of and make sure that their programs also encapsulate. So, for instance, reading to children, demonstrating how important fluency is. So when kids hear teachers read out loud to them, interesting stories that they want to be a part of, that is as important as setting those foundational skills where children are learning to sound outwards. So while I think it's a great way to emphasize the foundational reading skills, I think as teachers and as researchers, we don't want to forget that there are many other aspects to a really strong literacy program that we don't want to overlook. And I would say one of them for sure is developing that oral language. Another is reading out loud to kids. Another one is writing, making sure children have lots of opportunities to scribble and draw and, you know, make letters. So those are the kinds of things that I just think the new curriculum doesn't address as strongly as it does those foundational reading skills, which really refer to developing phonics knowledge and what we call phonemic awareness. But really what they refer to is word work, you know, decoding words. But I think the great thing is we're talking about beginning reading in a way that I don't know that we've done for a while now.
You know, and I'm sure that the engagement of parents is critical for a child's learning and the way they think and the way they formulate their personalities. You know, I'm thinking back to when I was a child and my parents would sometimes read me Bible stories, which I thought was kind of cool. Learning about Jesus, learning about David and Goliath and Samson, some powerful stories in God's Word. And at the same time, there were nursery rhymes too, which were a lot of fun as well. How important is it to have the parents engaged in their children's lives at such an early age when it comes to reading?
Yeah, it's essential, truly, and it sets a foundation. It makes children realize that reading is important. So I would say that for parents, one of the most important things you can do is read to and with your children. Find the amazing array of children's literature that's available in libraries. If you don't have a library card or you're not visiting the library yet, it's never too late to start the habit. Librarians are absolutely brilliant at helping to match readers to texts that will matter to them and be interesting to them. And they can be texts like a silly text like Dog Man and Captain Underpants, and they can be, more traditional stories like The Secret Garden. But there's so many books in between those two formats and genres. So you can really get kids interested in text by helping to make sure you understand how much is available out there. So yes, we may remember our familiar, our favorite texts, but in this day and age, there is so much Canadian and really great Canadian children's and young adult literature that there's no excuse not to find the book that matches the reader.
I'm glad you brought that up. I'm kind of curious as to why children sometimes fall behind when it comes to their reading skills, their comprehension and what they take in, what they absorb. Is it because maybe sometimes the subject matter really doesn't interest them that much?
Well, there can be a variety of reasons, truly, for declining student interest in reading. Yes, you're correct. Sometimes it is the actual topic might be less interesting. It could be the format too. So parents often ask me, is it all right for my child to be reading graphic novels? Shouldn't they be reading? And sometimes they use this term, real books. But graphic novels are extremely complex, and they do contain interesting storylines and characters, and the interesting thing about graphic novels is because there's not as much text in them as there might be in more traditional books. Kids have to engage in comprehension skills in a way that they might not have to in other texts, especially the skill of inferencing. And that simply means that you have to figure out, what's happening in a story when it is not said directly. So yes, they are great kinds of texts, but there are many different reasons why children's interest might decline. So we've talked about interest, but it could also be because of a certain reading skill. So decoding, could be a struggle for students. Fluency could be a struggle as well. So not being able to read at the same speed at which you speak. And if that's a problem, there are many strategies that teachers know about and will engage kids in order to, develop that particular skill. But teachers are pretty good at figuring out where the problem lies and then, taking the necessary interventions that might be needed.
I remember in school we were forced to read this book called Watership Down about a bunch of bunny rabbits going to work, and I got to tell you, it was the most boring thing, and I fell asleep and I lost interest. But fortunately, around the same time, the movie came out, Watership Down. I'm like, this is great. I just go see the movie and do the book report on that. Unfortunately, the ending of the movie was totally different from the book. So needless to say, it didn't end very well for Hal here. But anyway,
right.
Digital readers are now used in schools quite a bit, Dr. Bright. Do you see the increase in technology as a benefit, or does maybe research show something a little different?
Well, technology and teaching reading through things like ebooks and digital reading programs are being used, and I think they're being used effectively in classrooms. The evidence is sort of mixed in terms of the effect that they have. So the literature that I've reviewed in this area tends to show that it doesn't necessarily contribute to effective statistically significant gains. However, it may very well be something that is really interesting to some students and might hook them into reading in a way that traditional kinds of reading might not. But they're being used in classrooms, and they're technological tools that I think can be effective for some students and interesting for some students. But overall, they're not necessarily a panacea in terms of really contributing to better reading skills overall for children.
You know, with teenagers nowadays, the competition for eyeballs and attention you talk about in some ways to engage teens in reading and writing, how else can we do it outside of maybe ebooks and the traditional books that we get at the library?
Well, there are a number of things that I know teachers and librarians do. Book talks is one of the most effective ways, and I've been very fortunate to be invited into a number of schools where the teacher and the librarian and I will simply bring forward a ton of new books on a variety of topics, and we'll talk just for a couple of minutes. We'll try to leave kids a bit on a cliffhanger to get them really interested in new texts. And I've seen that really work because not one person can't really know all the books that are out there, but a group of teachers and parents and librarians can get together and share a number of different books with children and try to pique their interest. So book talking is something that we really stress as being a creative strategy that teachers can use. The other thing is helping kids talk together about books. Often they can really influence one another. So having kids, get together in small groups in libraries and in classrooms and talk a little bit about the last book that they read can also encourage their peers to become more excited and interested. But I will say, what happens in the home is really, really important. And so I think, parents just taking that active interest in what their kids are reading, introducing books to them. And if they're not, strong readers themselves, sharing a book together can be a great experience. So reading a book together, even as children get older into the middle grades, can be a really rewarding experience.
It's all about developing those building blocks. Dr. Robin Wright is Interim Dean at the Faculty of Education at the University of Lethbridge. Dr. Wright, thanks so much for your time today.
Thank you very much.
On behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News, I'm Hal Roberts. God bless and thanks for watching.